people of the internet. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Hi, love. Tonight we're going to be reading stories about dead people. As always, before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And if you have your own spooky, scary stories, make sure you email this email right here, which is also available in the description down below. These stories do not have to be your own, I repeat. They do not have to be your own. Just let a girl know. And if you're feeling generous and you're loving the content, here is my tip jar information. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get started. Tonight's Ask Reddit is all about paranormal activities. The first story says, I was awoken one night to a loud crash in my bathroom. I went in and all of the things on my sink top were in the middle of the floor. Middle of the floor. I mean, about 3 feet away from the sink. Everything, not just one thing, fell over and knocked the other into the sink, but toothbrush, toothpaste, hair gel, face wash, E4, hand soap, all on the floor in the middle of the bathroom. What was even worse is that between waking up and going to check out the bathroom, as I crossed the landing back to my room, I noticed a light had come on downstairs. I went down and both the hall light and the living room light were on, except none of the light switches were on the on position. I had to click the light switch on and off to make them switch off. I was living on my own at the time and it freaked me out a bit, but I'm still in the same house and have no other experiences. I should add that the first thing I assumed was a break-in, or in that case, of the bathroom stuff, wind. However, all the doors were still locked and bolted from the inside and no windows were open. Not to mention the bathroom is a bulkhead bathroom and has no windows anyway. Somebody commented on this story and said I had something similar happen about a year ago. I had picked up my boyfriend and we stopped at my house so I could take a bath before we went to my mother's house. He stayed on the porch to smoke a cigarette while I went inside. At the time, there was no one else in the house. I went back to my bedroom where there is a chain on the inside to lock it, chained the door, and ran the bath. My room is tiny and there's no places a person could hide. And there's no way that a human could slip in the door once it's chained. Can't open the window either without a lot of noise and effort. I was washing my hair, and out of the corner of my eye I saw some movement. I glanced up and a hand came out of nowhere and grabbed the handle of the bathroom door, slamming it shut. I didn't freak out at first because I thought it was my boyfriend who snuck in to play a prank. I laughed, stepped out of the tub and opened the door. There was no one in the room, and the chain was still locked. I started to flip out, walking in circles in the room trying to find who had slammed the door, checking to see that the window was still locked. No one. My boyfriend was still on the porch when I came out. A few days after, the lights started flickering. I live in a double-wide trailer, so I thought it was just faulty wiring. It still could be. But then one night I was walking out of the bedroom to get a glass of water, and the hall light went out, which wouldn't be so strange except that the broom, which was propped behind the washer, fell over, bearing my path down the hall. I was exploded. No reason. It wasn't particularly hot or cold, so the styrofoam had no reason to combust. AC or heat was not on. There was no one near it. It just exploded in a sticky, syrupy mess all over the couch. I thought I was going crazy until my boyfriend and a few friends mentioned weird experiences in the house as well. I would chalk it up to hysteria or exaggerated stories for attention. Except that I hadn't told anyone else about my own experiences. Sometimes I still see tall shadows in the bathroom, which I reason away by saying it's my cat so I can get some sleep. When these things happen, it's either the paranormal passing through or I'm just scaring myself. Either way, no one will come to harm, and that's what's important. Just to clarify a few things, I chained the bedroom door because my boyfriend and I were about a week into dating, so we weren't sexually active yet. I'm also shy about my body, and he is a bit of a prankster, hence why I locked the door and thought it was him messing with me. No, I didn't lock him out of the house. Just my bedroom. I have actually been to a therapist, and I can't read. Schizophrenia was ruled out. Seasonal depression, sure. So if that's the cause of these experiences, at least that would be an explanation my brain can wrap around, and I would be grateful. The next story says, I will swear by this until the day I die. When I was a kid, I was riding my bike on some hills next to the bayou with my brother. I crashed at the bottom, and while trying to straighten my bars, a little girl with a German Shepherd was standing on the hill. I had just come down and asked what we were doing there. We said, just riding, and she said we shouldn't be there because a little girl was killed over there, and pointed the grass. We looked, and she was gone. We ran to the top of the hill. There was nothing. It was about 75 yards to the road and fence. Ghost or brilliant prank pulled off by someone that never took credit for it. The next one says, a buddy and I were driving out on some Texas back roads late one night, and it was raining pretty heavily, so we had to drive kind of slow to see where we were going since there were no lights. Farm ranch houses were usually spaced out a couple miles from each other, just open land between them. That's about all there is on a lot of these country roads. At one point we saw a woman walking on the side of the road, nothing really remarkable about her, but it was worrying because it was at least 2 miles in any direction before there was a house. And we figured if she was out in the middle of nowhere in the rain, something bad must have happened. Or maybe her car broke down or something. My buddy got uncomfortable, and since he was driving, we didn't stop, but not far down the road, I convinced him to turn around in case she really needed help. She wasn't anywhere. We couldn't have gone more than a couple of 100 feet down the road, and there was no trace of her. You shine the brights in the field down the road, nothing. It was bizarre, and it kinda had us creeped. The next story says, buddy of mine lived in a really old building built in the 1800s, I believe, in a really old small town in Texas. Another Texas story. His apartment was upstairs girlfriend experienced the same thing when she was there by herself. After a while, they got used to it, just weird windows. Then, the final nail in the coffin for that place was when they got a dog. Oh god. I don't think I want to read the rest. I don't know what's gonna happen, and it's just stressing me out. The dog was a puppy, so was inherently happy, playful, always running around doing puppy stuff, except when the door in the closet blew open and the windows unlatched. Then the dog would stand completely still, focus its eyes on something that nobody else could see, and the dog's eyes would slowly track around the room as if it were watching someone or something. Nobody could ever figure out where the dog was looking or what the dog was looking at, and it only did this right after some other ghost stuff started happening. They moved out after this happened a few times. The next story says when I was about 8 or 9, I had a camping trip on the USS Hornet with my Cub Scout troop. Not that I knew at the time, but the Hornet is on many most haunted places lists. I got a horrible night's sleep that night. I remember waking up my dad every few minutes to ask what time it was. Around 3 or 4, I woke up with a horrible feeling in my stomach and sat up in the bunk. I saw a hazy outline of a person walking up rows of the bunk. No. I tried to shake my dad awake, but he just swatted me away. I think I just buried my head underneath the pillow. It wasn't exactly the shape of a person, but more of an oblong, sorry. Oh my goodness, my heart's beating really fast. An oblong cloud that seemed to move like it had legs. I always have trouble trying to explain what I saw, but I've believed in ghosts ever since. The next story. When I was a child, I had an imaginary friend, yet he was extremely real to me. This went on for years and helped me with a lot of stuff in my life. I'd always hear I was mature for my age, and I attributed that to my imaginary friend who helped me understand things I didn't really understand. I wouldn't always see him most times, I'd just hear him. He had no name whatsoever, at least I never asked, and he never told me. This could just be a regular imaginary friend from a creative mind situation. The paranormal part, he would tell me things I wouldn't ordinarily know. People would always call me lucky, yet those small moments of fortune were results of me doing things he told me to do, and I knew because of him the exact outcome. He was a good guy, Greg. I feel I learned to be a good person because of it. When I was around 13 to 14 years old, I started hearing a second voice. Never saw it, and it would tell me things that weren't so nice. Voice number 1 and 2 started arguing. I remember it clearly. One day in my bed, I couldn't stand the fighting anymore. It was like people shouting, and I said, "Enough. I don't want to hear either ever again. Leave me to my own decisions." And that was it. I'd never heard either anymore. Just for your information, I'm a perfectly normal adult with no mental or health issues. Successful education, career, relationship. Just so everybody knows. The next story says, the ambulance company I used to work for had a haunted ambulance, Rig 12. A lot of the EMTs had their own stories about it, mostly involving weird noises coming from the patient compartment or electronics going haywire. But I never put much stock in paranormal stuff. My personal experience was when my partner and I were in Rig 12 and posted in a rural community at 3 a.m. So it was pitch dark and dead quiet. We were both dozing off in the cabin. I was in the driver's seat and she was in the passenger seat. I woke up to a muffled voice and initially thought my partner was trying to talk to me. I told her I was trying to sleep and rolled over toward the window and closed my eyes again. Then I distinctly heard a male voice say, "Oh my God, am I dying?" seconds, then complete silence. My partner and I both sat straight up and looked back into the patient compartment where it sounded like it came from. It was quiet for a couple seconds, then we heard the click of an oxygen bottle regulator and a hissing, like it was leaking. I turned on the compartment lights and we both piled out of the rig. Initially I thought a transient may have climbed in the back while we were asleep and was messing with stuff. So we walked around to the back of the rig and opened the back doors. No one was back there. I checked both oxygen bottles. Neither were open. Needless to say, we kept the lights on in the rig and didn't sleep much after that. I don't know if I believe in hauntings, but I guess it would make sense for an ambulance to be haunted. Rig 12 had been in service with various agencies over a decade and had probably seen its fair share of patients die in the back. I rode in it a couple of shifts after that, but nothing else strange happened that I recall. The next story says, I slept on the floor of my parents' bedroom until an absurd age because I thought my room was haunted. The event that finally broke me was one night I was sleeping on their floor because company protects you from ghosts, obviously. When I heard a noise of their bedroom door opening, I opened my eyes to see a dozen or so pairs of feet entering the room silently, as knit to wake anyone else up. I tried to sit up to see what was going on, only to find myself unable to move. I looked above me and there was a figure, clad in a black suit, holding me down. Oh my goodness. That alone would have scared most people. But what paralyzed me with fear was his face, or rather, lack of face. It was blank as if someone had stolen it. All that was left was a mouth, a ragged oval that sucked at the air and stole my breath. I glanced down at the figure standing at my feet to see that they had no faces. They knelt down and held me to the floor as one put on a pair of gloves. They were going to take my face. They had theirs stolen and wanted mine to replace it. I would become one of them. I saw my mother's hand hanging over the bed, just out of reach. I tried to move, to wake her. Maybe if I got to her in time, she and my father could escape. They could take my sister and get out of there before the Faceless Men came for them. But the men held me down as the gloved man placed a knife to my temple. He made a small incision and slipped his finger inside, pulling at the skin and tearing my face away. I struggled to warn my mother, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Vision fading as my face was torn away. I awoke to find my parents standing over me, lights on, dog going bonkers, and my sister standing in the doorway. Apparently, I had started shrieking in my sleep, and they couldn't wake me before my heart finally gave out. My mother, who was trained in CPR, had to revive me, as my heart had stopped beating out of sheer terror. After this incident, we went to the hospital where it was discovered that I suffer from pretty severe sleep paralysis. That, coupled with a birth defect that makes my heart weak, had nearly killed me. Don't believe what they tell you, kids. Your dreams can hurt you. I'm happy they're okay, but holy shit. Wow. When I was about 6, my grandmother passed. Afterwards, my mother would frequently find me sitting at the foot of the bed at night, talking to thin air. I remember a vaguely human-shaped glow that I instinctively knew was my grandmother standing at the door. Each night, but none of the conversations. I have seen this same figure several times, even though we had moved several times, usually around the time of an important life event. Example, shortly after each of my siblings were born. Oh, what a nice turnaround from all the scary stories we've just read. On that note, I hope you enjoyed this video. which is also